Beneath the stone floors of Westminster Abbey, secrets festered for centuries. A boy king's finger had vanished from his coffin. A tyrant's corpse had been licked by dogs, and a dying queen claimed she could see dozens of children, the victims of fires she had ordered, hovering silently around her bed, watching her final moments. In 1869, a dean slipped through a narrow gap in the abbey walls and entered a forgotten burial space. Two royal coffins lay stacked in the dark, and time had chewed through wood and cloth alike. Through a crack in one coffin, he saw something deeply wrong. The Tudors changed England forever. Henry VIII and his 6 wives, Elizabeth I and her golden age, Edward VI, the king who died at 15. But their stories didn't end with their funerals. Over the centuries, their graves were opened, their coffins disturbed, and their remains examined, sometimes by historians, sometimes by thieves, and what they found was often shocking. This is what happened when the coffins of the Tudor monarchs were opened, and what lay waiting inside.
Welcome back to History Untold. I'm Alex, and together we'll uncover the hidden secrets of the past.
If these untold stories speak to you, hit the like button and join our family. Let's step into the past together. Chapter 1. The Founder's Broken Vault. Henry VII never wanted to be forgotten. He ended the Wars of the Roses and founded the Tudor dynasty. He commissioned a grand chapel at Westminster Abbey, the Lady Chapel, as his eternal monument, a family mausoleum for generations of Tudor kings. He died in 1509 after 24 years on the throne. His body was placed in a lead coffin and lowered into a vault beneath a magnificent bronze monument. The tomb cost £1,500. Henry VII lay beside his wife, Elizabeth of York, in the heart of his chapel. Everything was planned perfectly, but the dead don't get to choose what happens next. In 1603, the vault was opened when Elizabeth I died. Workers moved things around to make space for her, but she didn't stay long. James I, the new king, had other plans. The vault was opened again, coffins shifted, Elizabeth's body carried elsewhere. Then in 1625, James I himself died. He wanted to be buried in Henry VII's vault, not in his own family tomb in Scotland, but with the Tudors he'd succeeded. The workers came back, but there was a problem. The vault was getting crowded. To fit James I's coffin inside, they pushed Henry VII's to the side, squeezed it against the wall. In the process, they shattered the wooden supports. The coffin cracked, the outer shell splintered. Henry VII, the man who built a dynasty, was shoved aside like furniture to make room for a Stuart king. For more than 2 centuries, he lay there damaged, forgotten, sharing his mausoleum with the family that replaced his own. Then in 1869, Arthur Stanley became Dean of Westminster Abbey. He was curious about the vaults beneath the chapel, so he organized an expedition into the crypt. When Stanley crawled into Henry VII's vault, he found 3 coffins shrouded in darkness: Henry VII, Elizabeth of York, and James I. Stanley sketched what he saw: 3 bodies in a lead coffin, lying in a space barely big enough for 2. The wooden cases had rotted, the supports had collapsed. Henry VII's coffin showed clear damage from when it was moved. The vault was resealed after he left. It hasn't been opened since. Today, tourists admire the bronze monument above, but beneath it, Henry VII's coffin remains broken. His careful plans, for eternity, for legacy, meant nothing in the end, and his fate was gentler compared to what awaited his son. Chapter 2. The Tyrant King's Shattered Coffin. Henry VIII died the way he lived, causing chaos. January 28, 1547. The most powerful king England had ever known lay dying at Whitehall Palace. He was 55, massively overweight, suffering from ulcerated legs that oozed pus. A jousting accident years earlier had left him unable to exercise. The weight piled on. His mood darkened. Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, held the king's hand as Henry slipped away. Then the real problems began. Henry's body was enormous. The coffin built for him was the largest ever constructed for an English monarch, lined with lead to contain the smell. The plan was to bury him at Windsor beside Jane Seymour, his third wife. But Henry had wanted more. He'd commissioned a massive tomb for Westminster Abbey, something that would dwarf every other royal monument. Italian sculptors worked on it for years. He died before it was finished. The tomb was abandoned. Henry's dreams of eternal glory crumbled. So instead, he was taken to Windsor. A 4-mile funeral procession wound through the streets. The coffin sat atop a hearse pulled by black horses. On it was a wax effigy of the king, covered in jewels. The procession couldn't finish in one day. They stopped overnight at Sion Abbey. And that's when something went wrong. According to several accounts, Henry VIII's coffin exploded during the night. The body had been embalmed, but gases were building up inside. The pressure grew until something gave way. The coffin cracked. Bodily fluids leaked onto the chapel floor. And here's where it gets truly grotesque. A servant reported finding dogs in the chapel the next morning, licking the fluids from the stone floor. The king's own hunting dogs, some say. Consuming the remains of the man who'd once commanded armies and executed wives. There was a prophecy, spoken years earlier by a friar whom Henry had condemned. The friar warned that dogs would lick Henry's blood, just as they'd licked the blood of the biblical King Ahab. Henry had laughed at it then. He wasn't laughing anymore. It was a grotesque end for a king who demanded absolute control over everything. The procession continued to Windsor. 16 yeomen carried the massive coffin into St. George's Chapel and lowered it into the vault. Jane Seymour's coffin already rested there. Henry was placed beside her. If you want to know exactly what happened to Henry's coffin and why it exploded, you can watch another video where I go through the historical records in detail.
A century later, the English Civil War changed everything. Charles I was executed in 1649. Parliament needed somewhere to bury him quickly and quietly. They chose Windsor. They chose Henry VIII's vault. Workers opened the crypt and found Henry's massive coffin taking up most of the space. To fit Charles I inside, they had to move it. They pushed and shoved the heavy lead case to the side. Something cracked. The wooden supports shattered. The outer shell splintered. The coffin was damaged. The workers resealed the vault and left. For 150 years, no one opened it again. In 1813, the Prince Regent wanted to know if Charles I was really buried there, so he ordered the vault opened. When workers broke through the floor, they found 3 coffins, one very large, 2 smaller. The large one had a hole in it. Through the gap in the lead, they could see inside. The remains of Henry VIII were visible. The coffin had corroded, weakened by the damage. After nearly 3 centuries underground, the tyrant king's bones were exposed to the air. The Prince Regent examined Charles I's coffin instead. No one repaired Henry VIII's coffin. They just sealed the vault again and walked away. There's another story, harder to verify. Some accounts claim a soldier tried to steal a bone from Henry VIII's body to turn into a knife handle. Whether he succeeded, no one knows. What we do know, Henry VIII's coffin has never been properly repaired. The hole may still be there. His remains may still be exposed. Every day, thousands of tourists walk through St. George's Chapel. They walk right over Henry VIII's vault without knowing. Just a simple marble slab marks the spot. Beneath their feet, the most powerful king England ever knew lies in a broken coffin. His grand tomb was never built, and after everything he did to secure his legacy, he ended up damaged and disturbed, sharing a cramped vault with the king who represented everything he'd fought against. But at least Henry VIII had a marked grave. His son wasn't so fortunate.
Chapter 3. The Boy King They Forgot. Edward VI was 15 when he started coughing blood. He'd survived measles and smallpox before. He seemed strong enough despite being thin and pale. But in late 1552, something changed. The cough started. It wouldn't stop. By February 1553, he was bedridden. Tuberculosis. The doctors tried everything: potions, bleedings, prayer. One faith healer gave him a mixture that nearly killed him. His body wasted away. Hair fell out. The stomach swelled. Ulcers broke across his skin. On July 6, 1553, Edward VI died at Greenwich Palace. His last words, "I am faint. Lord, have mercy upon me and take my spirit." He was buried at Westminster Abbey in a vault near his grandparents. The funeral was modest. Plans were made for a grand tomb, but like so many Tudor monuments, it was never completed. Edward's vault was small, just over 7 feet long, barely 2 feet wide. For 90 years he rested there undisturbed. Then the Puritans came.
During the Civil War in 1643, they stormed Westminster Abbey. They destroyed statues, smashed stained glass. The altar marking Edward VI's grave was demolished. The location was lost. For more than 2 centuries, no one knew where the boy king was buried. In 1868, workers repairing the abbey broke through an old floor. They found fragments of an altar. They started digging. They found the vault. When they opened it, they discovered something disturbing. The outer wooden coffin had been partially cleared away. Someone had been inside before. Maybe Puritans, maybe someone else. The lead coffin beneath was in terrible condition, corroded badly. The metal had deformed and wasted away. Through the gaps, they could see inside. Edward VI's remains were visible. The cerecloth that was supposed to preserve the body had failed. It had fallen away. The skull was completely bare, not a single hair remained. But something else was wrong. Something the workers noticed immediately. One of the finger bones was missing. Someone had been inside this vault before, and they'd taken a piece of the boy king with them. Was it during the Puritan attacks? Or had some curious servant stolen into the vault decades earlier, looking for a royal relic to sell? No one knows. No record exists. But somewhere out there, perhaps in someone's attic or a forgotten museum collection, a bone from Edward VI's hand might still exist. After 300 years underground in a damaged coffin, nothing was left but skeletal remains, and not even all of those. The workers documented it, then resealed the vault. No repairs were made. They simply closed it up and left him there. Bones still exposed through the corroded lead. To this day, there's no grand tomb for Edward VI, just a small memorial stone placed in 1966. Most visitors walk right past it. Edward VI was the great hope of the Tudor dynasty, the son Henry VIII desperately wanted, the boy who was supposed to rule for decades. Instead, he died at 15 after months of agony. Buried in a cramped vault, His coffin corroded and exposed his remains. For centuries, no one even knew where he was. But at least his grave was eventually found. His half-sister Mary wasn't granted even that small dignity.
Chapter 4. Two Queens in One Grave. Mary I died believing she'd failed at everything. She was 42, racked with pain from what was probably ovarian cancer. For months, she'd believed she was pregnant. Her stomach swelled. She felt movement, but no child ever came. It was the tumor, mocking her hope for an heir. By November 1558, she was dying. Fever, blindness, bizarre dreams. Depression swallowed her whole. But in her final days, Mary said something strange to her ladies-in-waiting. She claimed she could see children around her bed, dozens of them, the children of the people she'd burned at the stake. They weren't threatening her, she said, they were just watching. Her attendants tried to comfort her, told her it was fever dreams, but Mary insisted. She could see them clearly, standing silent, waiting. On November 17 at 4 in the morning, she died peacefully at St. James's Palace. A servant thought she was resting. Only when they tried to wake her did they realize she was gone. Her funeral procession was impressive. On top of her coffin sat an effigy wearing coronation robes, holding the orb and scepter. Despite being unpopular for burning over 200 Protestants, she was still a queen, still Henry VIII's daughter. She was buried in the Lady Chapel at Westminster Abbey, not far from where her grandparents lay. But no grand tomb was built, just a simple burial in a modest vault. Mary was the first queen to rule England in her own right. She'd fought for her throne and won, but in death she was almost forgotten, her reign overshadowed by those who came after. But at least Mary's body stayed in one place. Her half-sister wasn't so fortunate.
Chapter 5. The Queen Who Couldn't Rest. Elizabeth I took 3 days to die. She was 69 years old. For weeks, she'd barely spoken. She refused to eat. She sat on cushions at Richmond Palace, staring at nothing, lost in thoughts no one could reach. Depression had swallowed her. The weight of 44 years on the throne, every execution she'd ordered, every life she'd ended. Especially one, Mary, Queen of Scots, her cousin, another anointed queen. Elizabeth had signed the death warrant in 1587, and it haunted her. In those final days, Elizabeth believed she wouldn't get into heaven because of it. How could she be forgiven for killing another queen? The Archbishop of Canterbury came to her bedside. He told her she would rule in heaven. He told her the friends who died were waiting for her there. But Elizabeth's throat was swelling. She could barely speak. On March 24, 1603, at around 2 in the morning, she died quietly. The question everyone had avoided for decades became urgent. Who would inherit? Elizabeth had no children. She'd remained unmarried her entire life. James VI of Scotland was chosen, the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, the child of the very woman Elizabeth had executed. Elizabeth had left specific instructions about her body. She did not want to be embalmed. She did not want her organs removed. Her wishes were ignored. The royal physicians cut her open anyway. They removed her heart and organs. They stuffed her chest with spices. They sealed her in a lead coffin. On April 28, 1603, the funeral procession began. The coffin, topped with an effigy wearing her crown and Parliament robes, was carried through London. Thousands lined the route. Many wept openly. One witness wrote, "There was such a general sighing, groaning, and weeping as the like has not been seen or known in the memory of man." England had never known a world without Elizabeth. She'd reigned for 44 years. Entire generations had grown old under her rule. At Westminster Abbey, she was lowered into the vault of her grandparents, Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. It was meant to be an honor, the greatest Tudor queen resting with the dynasty's founders. But she didn't stay there long. King James wanted to make his mark. He commissioned a grand tomb and decided she shouldn't rest with Henry VII anymore. He ordered Elizabeth's body exhumed. Her coffin was lifted from the vault. It was carried across the chapel, and it was lowered into Mary's vault. Workers stacked Elizabeth's coffin directly on top of her half-sisters. Two queens who'd fought over religion and power, two sisters who'd barely spoken in life, forced together in a space barely big enough for one. Then, in 1880, Arthur Stanley, the same dean who'd explored Henry VII's vault, found a small aperture in the wall. He crawled through it. Inside, he found exactly two coffins. Elizabeth's larger coffin rested on Mary's smaller one. The wood had decayed. The velvet had faded but not disappeared. Patches of red silk still clung to the oak lid. Stanley could see the inscription, ER 1603, a Tudor rose, the symbols of her reign slowly rotting away. He described it as one of the most moving sights he'd ever witnessed and sealed the vault immediately. It hasn't been opened since. Today, tourists flock to Elizabeth I's tomb. They admire the sculpture and take photographs. Directly beneath their feet, Elizabeth's coffin continues to decay on top of Mary's. The wood is crumbling. The velvet is disappearing. The two sisters locked together in eternal, uncomfortable proximity. Mary never got her own monument, never got recognition for being the first woman to claim the English throne. She got a shared grave with the sister who replaced her in history's memory, and even in that shared space, she came second. Elizabeth had been moved twice after death, exhumed, relocated, stacked on top of her rival. Her explicit wishes about embalming were ignored. She was the last Tudor monarch, the end of a dynasty that changed England forever, and she couldn't even rest in peace. Chapter 6. Why none of them could rest. The Tudors obsessed over legacy. Henry VIII commissioned the grandest tomb England had ever seen. Edward VI was supposed to get a monument befitting a boy king. Mary I died hoping to be remembered. Elizabeth I planned carefully for her succession and funeral. None of it mattered. Henry VIII's coffin exploded, then cracked when moved for Charles I. Edward VI was forgotten for centuries. His coffin corroded until his bones were visible. Mary I got no tomb and was forced to share a vault with Elizabeth. Elizabeth was exhumed and stacked on top of Mary against her wishes. The Tudors couldn't control what happened after they died. No matter how carefully they planned, no matter how powerful they'd been in life, death made them vulnerable. The Puritans smashed royal symbols during the Civil War. Later monarchs moved Tudor bodies to make room for themselves. Victorian historians pried open vaults to satisfy curiosity, then sealed them without repairs. The dynasty that changed England forever is falling apart in the darkness beneath tourist feet. The irony is perfect. The Tudors wanted to be remembered as powerful, eternal, and untouchable. They wanted monuments that would last forever. They got their wish. Everyone knows the Tudors. Everyone remembers Henry VIII and Elizabeth I. The dynasty lives on in books and films. But their bodies, their carefully preserved remains, the coffins they were so carefully placed in, damaged, disturbed, decaying, forgotten. The Tudors changed England, but England changed them right back, into dust and bones and rotting wood in the darkness, just like everyone else.
Let me ask you something. If you could open one royal vault and look inside, whose would it be? And what would you hope to find? A crown? A secret? Proof that history got it wrong. Because when people did open royal graves, what they found wasn't always peaceful. It wasn't always dignified, and it definitely wasn't what they expected. And this is where things get darker. Henry VIII had 6 wives. We all know how their lives ended. But what happened to their bodies after death? That's the part most people never hear. One was beheaded and buried in an unmarked grave. One was dug up and put on display for tourists who cut off her hair as souvenirs. And one disappeared so completely that we still don't know exactly where she's buried.
If you want to know what happened when the graves of Henry's wives were opened, check out part 2. Thanks for watching. I'll see you there.